Okay, Gavin, thank you for being here. We're happy to have you.
Yes, I'm excited for the conversation.
I am as well, and just for the audience, we have Gavin here. He's the director of client relations over at Big Four Talent. Is that the best way to say it, or how would you say it better?
No, that was perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, we
okay,
we try to
perfect.
keep it simple.
Yeah,
Yes, Big Four talent.
yeah, awesome, awesome. So I've been really excited to talk to you about some details about Big Four Talent, about you, and just the recruiting aspect of everything that we're going to talk about today. So let's start off. What initially drew you into the recruiting space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I kind of fell into it, and ironically, I was recruited uh, by someone to get into it. But so
Okay.
10 years ago, someone that I knew in high school had come across my LinkedIn profile and had reached out to me. And I was at a point where I was looking for a change. I had been in, door to door sales, kind of the shipping industry, and kind of had run its course, and I was looking for a change. And so they had reached out to me, and next thing you know, I'm going into the company, and so I was there. I've been in the staffing industry for about 10 years now. And what first drew me into it is just the being able to deal with people on a daily basis, and really try to make an impact in their lives is what got me into it and what continues to excite me about it.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I can relate to that. I mean, the ability to speak with people one on one, hear their personal stories, especially when it comes to their I maybe I shouldn't say their livelihood, but it feels like that because the work, their position, how they're paying for their kids' food, it all comes down to can you get a job?
Yeah.
Can you find work that can support your family? So that's amazing, and also really funny that you got recruited into recruiting. That's just a funny little play on words there, right? So
Right.
um, tell me about I know Big Four Talent is in the finance and accounting space. Tell me a little bit about your experience working in the finance and accounting space when it comes to recruiting, and how that shapes your recruiting strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think recruiting for accounting and finance has presented a huge opportunity for me to learn just how companies operate. Accounting and finance are the fundamentals of any business, and every business must have their financials, accurate and reported. Companies must be compliant, especially if they're publicly traded. Um, and so there's a lot of different aspects to learn from, and a lot of different verticals and functions within accounting and finance. You have your tax, you have your M&A, you have your general, more general kind of corporate accounting, investor relations, risk management, internal audit. Like, kind of the list goes on, and even to kind of your more traditional, every business has to close the books, and they have to account for kind of the assets and liabilities, debits and credits, if you will. So
Hmm.
so the spectrum of the different functions is so vast. So it's challenged me to learn um, about, obviously, the different aspects and how they all kind of come together.
Hmm.
I think it's challenged me and helped me to become a better recruiter. To help just ask better questions, to do my homework, um, and really help me to have a beginner's mindset in my approach for learning about the different aspects. Certainly, it's a wide range of different topics and different functions within accounting finance that you have to learn about, right? So it
Hmm.
challenges me to become a better recruiter, to really do my homework, to ask good questions, and really to be thorough on the front end when I'm speaking to clients and understanding, what it is they're looking for and what's important for them, to have in this person. So for me, it's it forces me to do my homework and my due diligence, and to really have a beginner's mindset in my approach of learning, and
Hmm.
just be curious, right? And I think another piece of it that's interesting is within accounting and finance, the duties will change with the size of the company. Typically in smaller firms, you'll be more of a generalist where you're touching a lot of different aspects and you're asked to wear many hats.
Mhm.
Versus, a larger company, obviously they're typically more siloed. And obviously the volume is going to be significantly higher than a smaller firm, but you're more of kind of a specialist with dealing with larger companies. So, overall, I think it shows how critical it is to understand the client, what they're looking for, and really hire the right person for the
Mhm.
the role and the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how was that learning curve for you? Do you have a background in finance as well, or is it more in sales?
No, so it's been predominantly in sales. I
Mhm.
started in IT and technology recruiting on the sales side, and it was for, it was for a Fortune 500 recruiting firm, and so I, rose up to a vice president on the sales side, and it was focused predominantly on more project-based work and more contractor-based work. So,
Mhm.
helping clients, finish projects, if they needed, web developers or, um, IT network administrators to help carry out projects. So I was
Mhm.
in that field for the first 6 years, 7 years, and then I pivoted to the accounting and finance side. So really no background, and so that's
Yeah.
it's been cool to learn a lot of different um, what I mentioned of just the different areas, because it's so vast of just how many different functions there are within accounting and finance.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to, the reason I brought that up is because I think it shows, not to kind of, I mean, gloat about you or however you'd say it, but I think that's pretty awesome, to be completely honest, that, you are an expert in the field, right? You said you've been doing it for, over 10 years now. So you are an expert in that field, but I'm sure it wasn't an easy adjustment because like what you were mentioning with finance, that is every company. That is if you want to be a successful business, you got to know your finances. You got to know the numbers. You got to make sure they work. So that's just awesome. I wanted to touch on that, make sure listeners kind of have an understanding of, yeah, you do know what you're talking about, and it probably wasn't an easy adjustment to be able to get into that, even though you had experience in other areas. So I want to talk about Big Four talent. Let's dive into Big Four talent. So what sparked Big Four talent, and what makes it different from other firms? There's thousands of recruiting firms out there. So tell us about Big Four talent specifically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great question, and appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.
So Big Four Talent was really spawned from our founders, just years of experience in recruiting. The founder, and really good friend, Justin. He had been in the accounting and finance recruiting world for the last 8 years or so, and what he identified a problem, and I think he was a bit fed up with just kind of the low response rates from the most sought after candidate. So typically, within accounting and finance, a lot of clients we identified really like candidates that come out of the big four accounting firms, and not only that, but like the large public accounting firms. But
Mhm.
and the reason is because they touch a lot of different areas, and they do a lot of work, like in the sense that they are asked to do a lot of work. And so it says a lot about a candidate that they're able to, you know, handle high volume and high visibility projects. And so, the founder really created a platform exclusively for the candidate that is coming out of the big four. Because, from their perspective, they're getting inundated, with 30 messages a day with, irrelevant opportunities, whether it's,
Mhm.
a different function that the candidate just doesn't, focus on, or different, revenue threshold that, maybe they're working for a multi-billion dollar company, and the opportunity that they're presented with is maybe a few $1 million company size. So it's really, we wanted to provide them another option where they're able to only go, enter their information once, create a profile, and then basically just have opportunities come their way. And if they, there's a matching component to it, so they'll enter their information. Um, and from the client perspective, we've heard a lot of positive feedback because, and we can get into kind of more details about it. But, I
Mhm.
think by and large, we figured employers were always trying to reduce the cost of recruitment. So, we were able to slice, kind of the fee structure in half in
Mhm.
comparison to kind of, more traditional headhunting fees while having, the most sought after candidates. So
Yeah.
I think the founder, certainly just identified kind of a problem and is trying to provide what I think is a world class solution to these big four candidates, as well as any client that really wants this type of candidate.
Mhm. Yeah, I like how you mentioned when we were talking earlier, it's really like a dating app, right? For accounting and finance. And maybe that's not the best way to say it, but I love
Yeah,
thinking about that because it does that matching aspect is really unique, right? Because what we do at Revive is, obviously we're taking care of the brand so that that match is easier. But when you have, a company that's matched with you and you've matched with them, and then you can have a conversation with them on the website and have all of that taken care of for you. I mean, what an easy process. Um, yeah,
absolutely.
I think that is a great idea. And yeah, I mean, saving money on staffing fees, does that make it easier to get, clients? Because I know that the companies are your clients, right? So does that make it easier to get them on the platform, or how has that been?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the first objective that we typically hear from a client that, let's say either already has a pre-established relationship with, an existing firm, but even before that,
Mhm.
of a company that's entertaining using an external, recruiting
Mhm.
company to help them is that fee. It's hey, we don't want to pay a fee. We're gonna put the posting up online to see, what we come up with, and then you know obviously we can come to you down the road if necessary, right? So the
Mhm.
fee is certainly an aspect of it, or the money, the that part of it is important for
Yeah.
clients, right? And so the idea that you aren't compromising the talent and you're paying less, like what even more though, it's you're literally going to be having kind of an elite group of candidates at your disposal at a fraction of the cost of what traditional staffing is. I think is what we're so excited about, and
Mhm.
as well as the automation piece of it. I think in 2024 people want, convenience. They want what's simple. You like I was watching a game last night and it was on Amazon Prime, and there's a little button that says, in a commercial there was an ad for a product, and on my TV said it had a little, like part where you can literally just say click and add to cart if you like this. It's just like
Wow.
we live in a
Yeah.
world where I think we want simple, we want convenience. And so I think, this we've had, a lot of just positive feedback about the platform and just the general client and customer experience.
Yeah. And that I really enjoy this idea. I really like it. When learning about this, I thought it was so interesting. So tell me, I'm kind of skipping ahead of what I wanted to ask. I'm going to go back to another question, but tell me how listeners can find what's the website and how can they reach out to you as well? I'd love for them to be able to know that while it's on our minds.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Big Four Talent is the website, and it four is spelled out. So big FOUR talent.com.
Okay.
Um, and I can certainly provide my LinkedIn, and our emails are listed on the website. So certainly, we're fairly active on LinkedIn as well. So either way,
Mhm.
you can find us.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. What we'll do is we'll include those in the links below so that the listeners can find that because we speak with CFOs and VPs in finance and accounting all day long. We speak with them all
Hmm.
the time. So I'd love for them to be able to find this platform and be able to be matched with people that employers that can really there can be a lot of benefit on both ends. So I've got a question for you that I think is really beneficial for our listeners. Let's talk about resumes just for a second. So let's talk about how does having an easy to read or a concise resume impact the placement process for candidates in accounting and the finance space?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think it's an important topic. I think it's a game changer first and foremost to have an easy to read and clear resume. I think resumes are kind of that first line of defense, if you will, or that kind of that first impression
Mhm.
for a client, right? And it's from a candidate perspective, you're competing with 50 other people for potentially, sometimes one opening. And
Mhm.
so, while the resume isn't necessarily going to get you the job, it's going to get your foot in the door, right? And so the biggest thing for, that I typically advise candidates
Mhm.
is you want to differentiate yourself obviously from other candidates, and a way
Yeah.
to do that immediately is to show tangible value added accomplishments as much as you can for what you've done for your your company and your department, right? And if you saved them money, if you created a process that streamlined their procedures and generated x amount of more time or money, that really will separate you and your and you know also like really just differentiate yourself and what you can bring to the table from
Yeah.
other candidates. But I think less is more in the sense that there sometimes can be a lot of fluff with resumes, especially now that we're in a world where there's obviously these AI tools that can help you craft different. A lot of people I've talked to are use ChatGPT to help them kind of craft resumes, which is great. But I think, sometimes fluff can come with that. So if you're able to add in kind of return on an investment, ROI type, you know, uh, just what you have done, it's going to help you separate yourself from other candidates.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for the advice there and for your thoughts. I think it's always great to see not just what we say from Revive, but also what recruiters are seeing, what your thoughts are. And um, I think a big thing, I think of this study I was reading just a few months ago on the impact of a resume on the interview, right? And I wish I remembered the name of the study so I could give these people credit. It was this scholarly article, and it was just lots of pages of, they would say, okay, let's have them read a resume and then see how that impacts their mindset when they speak to the person. And what they found is it even impacts their decision at the end, reading that
Hmm.
resume. Even though they're not thinking about it, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So even though the resume isn't the only thing, like what you mentioned, it is the first line of defense of, hey, am I putting my best foot forward? Am I differentiating myself? Because with AI right now, what we're seeing is there's over 100 applicants for positions online all the time,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you do need to
Right.
differentiate yourself. So I appreciate the advice. Do you have other thoughts on that?
On just what, the resume in general?
Or the AI and what you're seeing there. Are you guys seeing any
Yeah.
issues with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I think what is exciting about it, it can certainly boost production and, take those tasks that, were once viewed as kind of mundane and tedious and laborious. And AI, obviously, you fill in a prompt into ChatGPT and it will come out with, almost like a PhD type, explanation of something, right?
Yeah.
So I think it has definitely client candidates use it obviously for they can use it for resumes. I think it has just created an environment where we just have to adapt, right? I think
Mhm.
if you aren't adapting, you're kind of staying plateau. And um to your point, because it's easier to maybe make your resume look better,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot more applicants for positions. So it then forces kind of the recruiter to really be diligent and ask good questions and don't necessarily make assumptions, right? Because there is that kind of uh, you know, I wouldn't say dark side of it, but it's just like you want to make sure that what this person is listed on their resume is like they have actually done it and they can speak to it, right?
Mm.
Because there certainly can be cases where someone can input information on a resume and they just maybe just they understand the pressure for them getting a job and they want to make themselves look good in that step, right? But I
Mhm.
think it's important as a recruiter to ask those hard questions and really understand what they've done, what they and before that, really want to make sure that you can offer advice for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the thoughts here and the conversation today. I know I've spoken with a lot of people that are using new a lot of recruiters and hiring managers that are using new AI tools to detect if ChatGPT was used in the resume, right? So
Right, right.
there's a lot of pluses and minuses when it comes to using AI. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad that comes from it. And I appreciate all your thoughts today. Thank you for being here, Gavin. Thank you for your thoughts, and hopefully we'll be able to have you back on another time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jesse. I enjoyed it.